Welcome to this webinar. It's been brought to you by The Leap. They're an organisation that support arts and culture, but they do that in quite different ways. They work directly with communities and seek to provide them with support to build confidence, knowledge and skills through a range of routes, some financial and both non-financial supports. And they're really all about helping develop a community-led culture. And this webinar is part of a series of tools and resources for people to use to help get their ideas, ventures, projects, organisations off the ground. And today we're going to be looking at problem solving to better engage with your community. This is a great session to use whether you're just starting out and you're trying to work out what ideas you have, and you might have spent a bit of time looking at yourself and thinking what motivates you and why you might want to do this. And now you're ready to start thinking about improving the quality of your ideas, or you might have been running stuff for some time and you just want some tips to better engage with your community and think about really powerful solutions to social issues or creatively tackling issues in your community. So whatever angle you're coming from, welcome, and we'll get started. So why is this session important? How might you make the most of it? We're really going to try and help you identify what the key challenges are that bother you and why, and where you might be best placed to tackle those challenges. It'll also give you time to think about, who else is tackling these social issues that you're trying to address, and more importantly, how you're going to tackle things better, more effectively, and with more impact. And that you're not going to tackle it alone. We're really going to look at who your customers, beneficiaries and wider stakeholders are, anybody who's got a vested interest in what you do. They might be potential partners, they might be potential customers, they might be potential beneficiaries of what you do, but they've all got a stake and a role to play. And we're going to talk about this in some depth. So we're going to identify challenges and possible solutions. We're going to give you various tools to map all sorts of things. We're going to look at what that means in a moment, but lots of tools to map. Certainly 3 or 4 tools in this session that we hope you'll be able to use and take away. And these tools, there are crib sheets or downloadable tools that you can use to help you put these into action and use in your communities or use in your own time. So you may want to download some of the tools that relate to this session ahead of starting it. And additionally, person-centered design is something we're going to start to talk about. That means, putting people in your community at the heart of what you do, really. And stakeholder mapping is understanding the bigger picture of leaving no stone unturned in terms of who might be potentially interested in what you're doing, both to help and to be involved or to benefit or to invest or help resource this project or idea or development in some way, but also who else is out there that you need to be aware of, either as a competitor or as other people that are working perhaps in this space as well. So lots to think about, and we hope you enjoy the session. So, as I said, mapping is a key part of understanding what's going on, and we're going to look at mapping a few things. We want to help you really be able to reflect with your community, the challenges that they face, or how they're going to engage with your project. And what we're trying to do with this session really is help you think about how you can make their journey easy. How can you make life, activities, events, accessing what you do, how can you make it easier for people to get involved? And so we're going to be looking at mapping problems and how you go about mapping problems and challenges so that you can provide good quality solutions with the creative methods that you'll be using to seek change in your area. Understanding better what people's needs, and sometimes this term pain points, what are the pain points that you can take away for them is sometimes a reason that they will get involved. If they want to improve something in their local area, or there's a lack of access to something, or people aren't getting to be involved in creative activities, whatever it is that you're looking to develop, better understanding what the pain points are for your community or people around you who can support this will be really helpful, because you can strengthen all of that, improve all of that, and there's potentially more of a will and a want for people to get involved, and you'll be able to measure and see the benefits of what you're doing and that it's making a difference. And then mapping, generally customers, beneficiaries and stakeholders. We're going to walk through what, a bit more about what all these things mean and help you think about who do you know, who are you trying to find, or who are you targeting what you're doing at, so that they'll get involved, they'll benefit them, and they'll find ways to promote, sustain, invest, or get involved in what it is that you're offering. So let's start with problems and identifying social issues. So the first tool we're going to show you is called the problem tree. And it's quite simple. It almost looks like child's play when you doodle it out. And I would say, by all means, if you need to pause and download the problem tree tool, you can do that as a downloadable handout. Or you might just want a notepad and pen, and you can just doodle this stuff out. So do make sure you've got a notepad and pen. And we're going to be looking at, the root causes of challenges. That the tool's really all about helping you think about how you can try and address problems better with creative solutions, all sorts of creative ideas and solutions that you might have, and just thinking, where will you have the most impact? Where will you have the most effect? Where is your creative idea needed? Creative activities and solutions best going to help your community, and also make best use of your skills and networks as they're evolving. So here's the problem tree, very simple. Like I said, it's literally draw a tree or download the tool, and you've got your tree's got its trunk, it's got roots going into the ground under the soil, and it's got its branches and its leaves and foliage, and it's symbolic, and it's meant to represent a few things. So the trunk of the tree symbolizes the core issue or the main effect. So we'll talk about that in a second, and I'll try and give an example. The root causes are what's leading to that. Why is this an issue? And thinking through as many possible root causes as you can, so that you can leave no stone unturned in thinking through how these things come about. And then we start to then think about the flip side, in that, as a result of these root causes and this main effect that's happening, how is this having a wider potentially detrimental impact on society, or in your community, and how can you you'll then be able to spot gaps and areas for where you can best help. And so I would say, have a second to draw that out. If you're drawing it out, have a second to download it, and we'll start looking at how we can help you best use this. So let's get started now that hopefully people have got that tool or doodle something out, and get on with how you can start using it. So what we're getting you to do here, as I'll just recap, we really want you to consider what are the core issues that your idea seeks to address, what are the root causes, and the wider effects. And we're going to be, I'll walk through perhaps a quick example. I haven't got that example here. We're going to, I'm just going to give an example so that you might put this into your own context. It might be that you're ready to go and you can start thinking this through, but sometimes you need a bit of an example. So one example, there's an organisation called Flourish Together, and it's runs a range of services that seeks to invest its profits in supporting women as a force for social change. And in looking at the problem tree for them, which is actually my organisation, so there's a few things. There's the main effect. Sometimes it's easy to start with what's the main effect, or the core issue that you're trying to address. So they're trying to address the lack of economic independence and contribution of women in communities, in the workplace, in making social change happen. One of the root causes around that might be that, you know, some women, not all women, but some women lack skills and confidence. Looking across broad and diverse communities, some women might have language barriers. So I'd be writing, you know, what are the root causes? There's one root, you know, it's lack of skills and confidence, lack of, you know, sometimes language barriers can get in the way. Sometimes another root cause, you know, women are not always fully able to prioritise themselves, or their care commitments can take precedence. Some women might have physical or mental health setbacks. For some women, you know, the lack of them being able to have that economic independence and get ahead might be an inflexible workplace or workspaces and sectors. You know, a flip side, a completely different side. You know, so it's good to really think about very broad root causes. Another different root cause is that perhaps homemaking and being, you know, at home with the children is undervalued. So there's not that financial backing or incentive fully to really help people have that economic independence and be able to contribute in other ways beyond what they're doing. Cost and accessibility of childcare is a challenge and a root cause to why more women aren't getting that economic independence and actively involved in all sectors at all levels, and, you know, around leadership tables and everything else. Cost of and accessibility of training. So somebody might be ready to move on or to access some sort of work or try and get a promotion or whatever it is, but the cost of that and the way that to access training or finding and getting into those new opportunities might be a barrier, might be a root cause to why this is a problem. And if somebody's been out of work for some time, you know, they might have barriers to returning. So I'm just walking through and, you know, trying to show you thinking about root causes from as many broad angles as possible. So we're saying that all of these root causes are some of the reasons that are leading to why, you know, there's an underemployment of women and a lack of economic independence. This is the core issue and the main effect for my organisation, Flourish Together, you know, and what that then leads to for society. And so you'll then be able to, in thinking through your own case, put through what's the main thing that what's the main social issue that you're trying to address, what are the root causes, and then what are the wider societal effects. For my organisation and for what we seek to do, as a result of this, women not having the economic independence they need and not actively contributing at all levels of community and society and the workplace, you know, women feel frustrated, can lack confidence and self-esteem. They might remain in underpaid roles for a long time and they don't fully enable their potential. Ultimately, the world misses out from less women influencing policy and leadership and you know, and designing products and all sorts of other things. And those, so things aren't always necessarily fit for purpose from that different lens and with that different thinking. Ultimately, you know, the world misses out from billions of pounds of potential economic activity. And you may want to go as far in your own thinking as thinking, you know, are there statements, is there information out there that can back up what you're saying? So I know, you know, according to the World Banks, there's 160 trillion economic sort of deficit due to the lack of gender parity in the workforce. You know, I've gone away, looked at some reports, and they're saying that because, you know, if women were achieving their full potential in the workplace and in society and setting up businesses and all of this stuff, a further 160 trillion pounds would be there produced as economic activity. You know, sometimes it's not all about the money, but it's a consideration. There's other things, you know, less women have, it means that less women have the financial independence to own their own assets, freedom, have freedom of choice to, you know, to buy properties and things. We can end up perpetuating poverty and hardship and people getting trapped in benefit systems, and potentially we perpetuate, you know, inflexible, inaccessible workplaces or study environments and so on. So I've given you a kind of big story there around a problem tree example that we've worked through, and hopefully in thinking this through in your own way, you can relate to that and think, well, what are the root causes in my community for what I'm trying to do? You know, if you know that children and young people, the main issue is that they're not able to access affordable creative activities, or if you know that there's a lack of community spaces and assets that you can run creative activities and creative and cultural events in, or who knows, you've all got your own sort of thoughts on where you've got to in your thinking so far. Pin down, you know, that what's the main social issue you're trying to address, and think through those root causes really broadly, like I just did from my perspective on the root causes, and then really broadly on those societal effects. And you might want to pause this while you doodle and jot all things down. Once you've mapped and doodled down these causes and these societal effects, you can then sit back and look at what you've written, and look at what you've drawn and doodled out to think, where are you best placed to help? You know, and you can think of all of the challenges from root causes or to effects point of view. You know, where are there already solutions and services that you're aware of that are helping or that are already strong? And you might want to write these on either in a different colour or mark them in a different way. So that where are there already solutions in this problem tree that you've doodled out? Where can you see there is already some help or some interest or useful things happening? Things for the people that you're targeting, or solutions that are already running that might be new, might be long-standing. Where are the gaps? You know, where would ideas and solutions have the most impact in the whole scheme of things? What are you noticing from what you've written are key areas that there's a weakness in the system, and there's not the solutions presenting themselves, and maybe that's where you could step in and make sure that you're, you know, running your activities, your events targeted at that particular marginalized group, or targeted at that particular geography that doesn't have this going on, or working with a particular, you know, the problems are huge, you know, you don't have to tackle the whole problem. That's another point of this, is that you can narrow your focus in and just target a part of the problem, because the more targeted and the more, I guess, not always niche and nuanced, but the more targeted you can be with your offer, what the offer is and who it's for and why. And you'll know that when you look at your problem tree and you think, well, these are the reasons we're doing this, because there's these root causes that have caused this problem. These are some of the effects, and these are the specific effects that we're trying to tackle. So you might not, you know, it Flourish with ours, you know, we're not necessarily trying to, you know, tackle physical and mental health setbacks. We're not necessarily trying to tackle inflexible workspaces, because that might be out of our control. It's a factor, but it's not something we can work with. But we might tackle things in other ways around making certain things accessible, building confidence, targeting particular training at particular people, so we can crack some of the challenge and work in partnership with others to do the rest. Yeah, it was really helping you to think about how you're seeking to address it in a small or a large way, depending on what's best for you, best for your community, and what's realistic. And looking at this problem tree and looking at what you've learned from what you've written down, what next steps might you take in order to take some steps? Is there a bit more research that you have to do because actually you don't know enough about some of those root causes? Or is there some evidence that you need to find to demonstrate what the wider impact on society is, so that you can better convince people why this is a problem? Or maybe you've noticed that in thinking about the root causes, there's particular demographic groups, either because there's a gap and a need there, or because you know and you're working with those people that they're the people that you're going to target first. So talking to that community might be a next step. Just have a little think about of what you've digested there, what looks like a priority, either for your knowledge finding and fact finding, or for practically planning what you might do next. Yeah, and we're going to move on to person-centered design. This is this next bit of making things practical. So we've mapped out some challenges, and we've thought about these and what you might be best able to address. But how do you go about designing activities, events, services, products, whatever it is, in order to come up with the best solutions for people and get them wanting to be engaged in this? You've really got to put yourself in the shoes of your community and the people affected by these challenges. And you might be in there, but you're thinking about this through one lens and through your life journey. And by talking to a broader range of people, you'll learn a bit more about just really what the causes and effects are of the challenges that are happening, and may learn some new aspects or elements that you might be best placed to come up with tailored specialist activities and events that are really going to unlock creativity and bring community-led culture to life, because it's really fit for purpose. And obviously there's your community who might access these services or events or activities, but then there are broader, the broader people who have an interest. So we're going to take a look at, really focusing in on looking at person-centered design. And we have a quick task here just to try and bring it to life. I talked earlier about pain points and mapping pain points. This 5-minute task for you, or you might do this as a group, if you're trying to get people to understand what your how we all have views, and how actually there's a lot more in things that need sorting out than people realize. So, if you draw out your morning routine, identify what happens to you in the morning, what happens in the morning in getting out the door, or getting onto the laptop, or getting on the school run, or whatever you have to do when you get up in order to then take some action or next steps in your day. What are the pain points, and what the reason we're getting you to do this is giving you a format to think about yourself, or to use with your community, to get them to think about pain points on the challenge that you're trying to set. But sometimes just thinking through, why are we doing this? So doodle down, what happens for you in the morning. And when we looked at this, I am a morning person, but the person at the time, I'm not a morning person. There's that mental block and that, the dread, or they just know they're a bit sluggish in the morning. So that's one pain point. How do we tackle that challenge? Then there's another pain point. That particular morning for somebody was, the shower was cold. Maybe they couldn't afford to put the shower on in the first place, in current climates. And, so there's that that might be a challenge. There might be, that they've, had problems getting on the laptop, or they don't have a laptop to be able to check emails, and, their phone's broken, or, there's a million things that could go wrong in the morning. And, there's also the fact that they might be out of milk when they try and make a cup of tea, and run out of toothpaste. Whatever it is, there's a morning routine that you go through, and when you jot down what that is and what the pain points were for you this morning leaving the house, it might be that you didn't set your alarm. It might be, all sorts of things. So once you've had to think of that, and we think about these things, we then think about what to ask. So how do we unpack this further? And how do we help the people in our community to tell us and help us be realistic with our own solutions for some of these things? So when you spot what the pain points or challenges are, where are they? How are they happening? And are they big or small, these challenges? What's the significance? Is it a huge challenge? Is it a small challenge? Is it a repetitive thing? Is what's not working for people? And that might then help to see where's their most need, or what's causing the biggest challenge, or the biggest blockages, or the biggest sort of sense of deflation for people. And who's got control over, with what you've jotted down there, or if you were to reiterate this task, with your community about, the pain points around the challenge that you're trying to solve, you know, who has control over these things? What have you got in your gift to change and tackle and do something about in creative ways? Who needs to be involved, and who else is saying, where are the patterns, and who else is saying that this is a problem, and you know, what are the reasons that they're giving that it's a problem? And then the different types of challenges. Some of them are internal and emotional. Some of them are external, because they're factors either beyond our control, or there's practical equipment or facilities that people do and don't have. Some of them are environmental, in terms of a particular place, or in terms of the, you know, how particular environments work. And really what we're trying to, in thinking through these challenges in such a detailed way, we're trying to think about special sort of bespoke ways that you can tackle challenges that you're looking at with communities, how you can come up with creative solutions, and how you really make what you want to develop really fit for purpose. You know, whether it's events, whether it's helping people access, you know, new music or new theatre, or you know, get out into different venues. By really thinking through what people are saying, it gives you new perspectives, really, and avenues that you can go down to either create a really good project, product, service, or idea in the first place, or it gives you a way to refine it and come up with ideas for ways to improve what you've already started. So and talking to your community in such depth, and we've got another tool in a moment to help you do that, will they'll tell you what they need. They'll help you stand out. They'll help you work out how you can be unique with your proposition and your project ideas. So talking to people is going to be key. And in order to talk to people, sometimes you need to get things from different perspectives and understand how they'll engage with you. So when we looked, there's a webinar that looks on 7 steps to getting started, and within that, one of the steps to getting started, as we're talking about today, is understanding how to meet community needs and solve problems with your creative ideas, but also how to get to people, how to engage with them, particularly in communities where they may or may not have, you know, experienced arts, culture by the way it's been presented to them, or they may not have had chance to get out and get involved in the kinds of things that you want to develop or run. How is what you're going to offer crack that nut? You know, how is it going to solve the problem? And if you speak to your people in your community, they'll tell you, and you'll better understand how to reach them in ways that maybe larger organisations or organisations in other areas that are trying to work in Bradford and they're not understanding the context, or Keighley and not understanding the context, you'll be able to bring not only your own expertise, but the expertise of all the people that you talk to. So this is just an example. At the time, you know, when we were talking to people, we were trying to create a Meals on Wheels service and come up with creative ways to actively engage older people in arts and culture, and also make sure, you know, one of the pressures and pain points was, you know, they needed access to good quality food and better quality food, and in order to just leave the house. So we were looking at, in order to get them to the creative activities that were in a space in a centre, they actually also needed help in their own homes through food and through other methods. And anyway, so that's why it says Joan here, but you'll have the names of your own potential beneficiaries or people who you know. And it's a case of really putting yourself in their shoes, and you either speak to Joan or your beneficiary, or you sit and imagine initially who they are and what's going on for them. And this tool here, which is downloadable out of the resource pack and the toolkit, is something that you can use as a crib sheet to write on. So knowing somebody's age and the kinds of relationships that they've got with other people, their living situation, maybe their occupation, interests, hobbies, whether or not they've got access to media, social media, different kinds of devices, how they access media. Are they more of a newspaper person? Are they local news, national news? Are they looking at social media in any way? Are they popping down to the doctors or popping to the shops or going in the post office or going in their local faith groups and spotting posters and things on the walls? What are they, where are they visiting, and what's going on? And there's reasons we ask all these questions, and it's to help you find them, reach them better, and create communications that are going to be appropriate for them, that they'll spot, oh look what you're doing, or oh look, this is targeted at me, or and by really understanding who you're working with in a really targeted way, you will save time and make your ideas and communications hit where they're supposed to and reach the people they're supposed to quicker. We're also trying to work out from our community, so your beneficiaries, what are those pain points, so in their life, what are their goals and needs? What are their goals and needs right now? And it might be in relation to arts and culture or engaging the community, or you might just want to hear what have they got to say in order for you to create some really targeted solutions for what communities need, rather than going in with your own perspective and your own idea and your own lens on what you want to do. Person-centered design is all about listening to the community first, and by understanding, what are their goals and needs, what are their favorite things to do, or what do they hope for the future, or if you're going to put it in the context of arts, culture and community, you might be asking them questions around that specifically, how often they might go to things, if they're involved in arts, community and culture, what are their hopes in their local area, and what do they like now, what motivates them to get involved, to get along, to attend things, to be part of things, and what frustrates them, and what else might they tell you when they're talking about this. And you might want to know more about their sort of attitude and values, and sort of, is this a priority for them? Is arts, culture and community, or is the kind of thing that you're looking at developing, is it high on their agenda? Is it something that they need? Is what they're saying in terms of their attitude and values around this going to resonate? Are they the right people you want to reach? And how often might they engage with these sorts of things, if you're talking to people about specific activities or events? So this tool gives you a way to walk around this. I think I've talked about it for long enough. I'm going to give you this example. So in this case, we knew that Joan, we knew her age, she's healthy, but her health and well-being is suffering from living alone, and she's not feeling confident to leave the house independently. So there might be people in your community, if you're looking at targeting older people or younger people or whoever else, what are they like, and what's acting as a barrier to them, and what could act as a barrier to them to get involved in your service or activity or event, and how can you tailor what you're doing to better engage and better meet people like Joan's needs, or anybody else who's a persona that you're thinking of. And by understanding a little bit more about her life, how she is, where she lives, what her interests are, you suddenly start to get a bit more of a picture on how we might be able to get hold of Joan if she's our target audience. And we're understanding what motivates and what she enjoys and likes, and but we're also understanding her frustrations, and we can use these conversations to help not only strengthen our ideas and think, how could we meet some Joan's needs better to engage her, but also how could we be designing our service or event or activity or organisation to resonate with Joan, so that she sees that we're the people for her to get involved with. So I would say download the tool or doodle it out and have a think. There's two ways of looking at this. You can create a little focus group to talk to people if you've already got people involved, or you can go and out and about and talk to a few of the people in the community, or you can sit and have a think of people who perhaps might have already engaged in what some of what you've been doing if you started, or the kinds of people that you're wanting to reach out to, you can guess some of this, and then you can speak to people and fill in the gaps of the rest. There's different ways, depending on what you've got time, confidence and interest to do. You can really start to peel back the layers of the onion, as we say, and understand in detail the people that you're trying to involve, support, engage, and meet the needs of with your creative and cultural activities and events and services. So we just say, give it a go in your own time and relate it, to the idea or scenario that you're currently involved with, and repeat it with different people, repeat it with a few different people with different backgrounds, perspectives, needs, ages, or however you're working. And if you're working with children and young people, you do that with the children and young people, but you'd also do it with their parents, or you might do it with their teachers, as an example of thinking, who are the different people who've got an interest in this, and who might I need to talk to? And when you've done this with a few people, does it make you think differently about how you design your activities, event or service? And, might it change the way you think about them in terms of how you might approach them, how you might need to communicate with them in certain ways, how you might start your project one way, but then it might give you ideas for new services or new events or new themes that you can tackle later down the line when you first get, you've got started. And it'll give you a way of, testing what you're doing with people. So if you've got ideas and things that you're ready to get going with, you can use that persona tool to really test what they think and test how they might get involved, and see if what you're offering might help with their pain points, and help with things that they know they're going to need from you, and you can then adapt what you're doing based on the feedback that you get. So that's the persona. I'm going to move back into mapping other things now. We're going to get back into thinking about who's out there, and how do you need to spread your net wide and wider than your immediate community, perhaps. So yeah, what we're saying is that in order to reflect with your community, or future customers or beneficiaries around the challenges they're facing, and how can you provide solutions with them, you need to know who they are, and who right now is probably just like a tiny portion of who's really out there. So this next little bit, we use the term stakeholders, but who are your customers, beneficiaries and stakeholders? And there's a difference between these titles that we giving people here. And so customer is somebody that's going to physically pay for what you're doing. And it might be Leap's the customer because you're offering everything free at the point of access, and the Leap have funded you to do something in this first instance, but you're going to have to find new customers beyond the lifetime of your project. So, other funders, other commissioners, other people. So there might be that type of customer. It might be that in future, or as part of your project, you're going to start charging people for tickets or for merchandise, or for a workshop, or for getting part and taking part in an experience, or accessing a service, and you'll put a charge on that for people to pay to help sustain stuff. And so it may be that some of the people who are benefiting from what you're doing may also be customers. It may not be, sometimes customers and beneficiaries are the same, sometimes they're different, depending on who's paying for it and whether it's being funded or whether it's being a paid for service. And then broader than that, there's everybody else who's got a vested interest in what you're doing. And we've thrown this diagram, sort of higgledy-piggledy diagram here, to get you to just think more broadly about who are the potential stakeholders and partners that might be interested in what you're developing. And initially, it might just be you and a few people that are just getting started and giving something a go. But when you need to ask for help, when you might need to ask for funds and resources and in-kind time, when you might need to ask for ideas to take what you're developing into different areas or into different themed sort of sectors. You might have developed a fantastic event, fantastic tools, some fantastic workshops, and if you want to sustain what you're doing beyond the lifetime of the initial project, you might then take those things that you've developed and run with them in particular ways in different sectors. And so that's why we're wanting you to just bear this in mind, really. It may be that you just need to get testing and get started, and that's absolutely fine. But if you're looking at running what you're doing beyond the lifetime of the funding, it's never too soon to start thinking about who's out there and who might be interested and who might be able to help. So we're suggesting that within this little tool here that we're showing you, you start to think about who these people are and whether you know whether these are a priority of interest to you, and who you know. So we've broken it out into there's the public sector, so that's like local authorities, government funded or government commissioned types of people, places and facilities. So you'll see, you know, local authorities, local councils, regional and national governments, schools and colleges, health services would also sit, you know, on that side, you know, health services and so on. You've got the private sector, which is, you know, small, medium enterprises, that stands for SMEs, people on your high street, independent shops, local businesses, large businesses, corporate organisations, large multinationals would all sit in that. We've got the third sector in the civil society, as it's called here, the VCSE sector, sometimes it's termed, but voluntary organisations and charities, social enterprises, other community organisations, non-government organisations, people out and about volunteering with these kind of groups and organisations or working within them. And then communities and places of interest. There's a kind of gap there because you'll know your own communities and places of interest, and that's basically accessing the general public and maybe some, you know, specific places that are core and key to what you're doing. So what we're suggesting that you do is spend some time having a think. And again, there's a downloadable tool for this, or you can just draw 3 circles very simply. And it's a case of having a think of what's relevant for you right now, what might be relevant for you in the future, and who do you know in these places and spaces under these headings. You know, are other community organisations and arts organisations and charities and social enterprises going to be key for you? And who do you know? You know, if you've got to get your project off the ground to promote it, to get more money for it, to find out some special technical information, or to hire some kit that's relevant for your particular project, product or service, who's been there and done it, and who can you ask? And so there's people like that. There might be, you might be running this in a particular area and you think some of the local businesses and or local faith groups or corporates or larger organizations working in your area. You know, do you know anybody who works in some of these places and spaces, and how might they play a role in helping you develop this or promote it or back it or get special pro bono support to do something? And likewise, the same goes for different sort of public sector departments and organizations. Who do you know? Who's been a champion and a supporter already, and who else might you need to find? That's really what this is for. And it's to help prioritise, because trying to make contacts and connections can be daunting. It can feel a bit daunting and it can take a lot of time. And we're saying be a little bit hard-nosed here, look after yourself. And if you can try and prioritise who your beneficiaries, customers and stakeholders are, it will save you some time and energy and effort. And there's a suggestion here, we've used this quite a lot, to pinpoint who exactly we should be spending our time with and reaching out to. And there's people with power and influence. So they might not have loads of money. They might not even have a need yet. You're going to have to sell it to them. But there's people with power and influence who, you know, there might be people in the media, there might be people in local councillors, there might be somebody who's a senior manager in an organisation, there might be parents, carers, and other people linked to the communities and families that you might work with. Who do you know, and who's there, and what role might they play? Who can you ask for support? There's people with money and resources, and there are all sorts, whether that's a particular funder, whether that's local businesses, whether that's social prescribers, or whether that's particular arts and cultural organisations, people who manage and run spaces and facilities, people with money and resources. And then there's people with need, who actually need what you want to run. So if you're running something, the people who need it might be all of those people out in the community that you've just spoken to. Have they power and influence? Have they money and resources? Or are they coming because they need and they want to attend? They might sit closer to the middle of this circle or not, depending on all sorts of things. But who else needs what you're running? It might be that actually there are local other arts organisations that really need what you're running, because they're trying to reach new communities, or they're trying to do things in culturally aware or particular sort of age group or sort of gender aware ways. It may be that they are needing what you're doing because you're addressing other things. So you might be running events because you want to promote music or arts or get people more involved in creative activities. But if that's boosting people's well-being, or if that's giving them skills, then the schools and colleges, or people trying to address inequalities in employment, or trying to address inequalities in health and well-being, will need what you have to offer. And it's about positioning what you're doing so you can talk to them about it in a way that makes them listen and unlock their power and influence and unlock their money and resources. So that's why we're suggesting that you do this activity, is to just save you some time, really pinpoint down who you know and who you don't know. It doesn't matter right now if in that box it's, in these circles, it might initially be quite bare, but when you really sit down and think, and name, who have you talked to that needs this, and who do you know, or who do you hope to approach, and where do you think they sit in these spheres? The people closest to the centre, that have a combination of need, power and influence, and money and resources, are for the foreseeable future the people to try and prioritise your time with, if you're wanting to sustain and grow what you're doing, or if you're wanting needs and need support to promote and get people involved, and really build a community around what you're doing. Those are the ones that are more likely to say yes, more likely to be proactive in being part of what you're doing. So hope that you can take some time to really reflect on that. And it can be a 10-minute task, it can be a 2-minute task, it can be a 20-minute task. It's however long you've got to give, but it should open your thinking to other people that could potentially be involved in what you're doing, and help you start to think about how you might get hold of them, and what role and what level of interest they've got. So, summarise the session that we've just had. And you might want to go back and press rewind and press pause and look at some of those tools if you've not had a chance. But we've tried to help map challenges and map problems, and really look at what some of the cause and effects are, to refine the quality of your ideas and to see where you might make the most difference and be best placed to help. So you can't be all things to all people. So how are you going to place yourself to make best use of your time and resources and make the most difference? We've tried to give you some tools to start to put people at the centre of designing the solutions alongside you, that you're, whether it's events, activities, new ways of training and people, new ways of getting transport and other ways of accessing things. There's lots of things that you can do to help put people, address those solutions. But until you start talking to people, you're only understanding half of the picture. And how to engage them and what they need. And then lastly, we've started to have a think about who are the wider stakeholders, who are the people who've got a vested interest in what you do more broadly than your immediate beneficiaries or your immediate customers, and what are their needs? Who has need for what you're doing, who's going to need some convincing, who's got money and influence, and how might these different people, beyond what you're immediately doing, be able to take part or be able to support something or be able to promote something. There's different needs that you're going to have from them and they're going to have from you, and sitting and mapping that out and having a little think about that to save you some time, save you some wasted conversations, and to help bring people and resources and interest into what you're doing is really, you know, what it's all about. So I hope that's been useful. We really hope that some of that will help you, you know, take the leap further in your projects and what you're doing. You can find out more and you can build on what you've been learning through listening to some of the other webinars and looking at some of the other tools. And if you need more support, then wider partner organisations and the Leap directly are there to help. And the Leap's website is a useful resource to be looking at, or you can follow them through social media as well. So we continue to wish you well and good luck in all your projects, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Bye for now.